Hey, I'm Rob North. You know, a lathe is an incredible tool that lets you do all kinds of things. Turn bowls, plates, even table legs. So today I'm going to go over the basics of how to use a lathe, starting with the anatomy. First, the business end. This is the headstock. What drives the lathe is the motor at the bottom of the headstock. If you open up the headstock cover, you can see that the motor is attached to the spindle via a series of pulleys and a drive belt. The spindle is what actually turns your work. It also features a faceplate that can be mounted directly to your material. If you're going to use the faceplate, you'll need to lock the spindle lock so that it can be removed. There's also a drive spur, which you can pop out with this removal tool if you're going to mount that to your material. The on and off switch is pretty obvious. It features a safety key so someone can't accidentally turn it on. Next comes the bed of the lathe. It's made out of sturdy cast iron, which reduces vibration. This particular bed is more than big enough for our project and can be extended to over 40 inches if you buy an extension. Remember, the maximum size stock you can turn all depends on the size of the bed. Mounted to your bed is your tool rest. You'll be using this to rest your tools against as you create your masterpiece. The beauty of this thing is that you can move it anywhere along the length and across the width of the bed. This allows you to get the perfect position every time. Moving down towards the end of the bed, you'll find the tailstock. Located inside of the tailstock is the live center. That provides support for your work by giving the other end a point to spin on. The tailstock is also adjustable along the length of the bed. This allows you to work a wide range of material. Last but certainly not least is the center advance. It's no more than a crank that allows you to move the center back and forth as needed. Now that we know what a lathe is, it's important to know what to wear. First off, no loose clothing. Sleeves, get those rolled up. Long hair, tie that up too. Basically, you want nothing hanging out that can get caught up in the machine. Now personally, I strongly recommend you use a face shield. I mean, this thing spits out a lot of chips, and you want to protect those eyeballs. So now let's talk about how to mount materials to the lathe itself. The mounting process all depends on the nature of your project. If you're turning a bowl with a wide diameter, you'll need to mount it directly to the faceplate. That's because it'll give you the maximum amount of support. To do this, simply remove the faceplate from the spindle by locking the spindle and using the provided wrench to turn the faceplate off. Then place it at the center of the material and screw it in. If you're turning something narrow that'll require you to get closer to the mounting point, the drive spur is the way to go. In order to use the drive spur, you need to punch it out with the removal tool. Then use a hammer to drive it into the center of your work. At that point, slip the whole piece back into the spindle and then slide the tailstock up until it's relatively close to the other end of the material. Then using the hand crank, advance the live center until it makes contact with the center of the material. So now that we know how to mount the material, let's figure out how fast it should be spinning. And there's one rule of thumb that basically covers this question. And it simply states that the bigger something is, or the more material you want to remove, then the slower it should be spinning, such as when something's square and you're trying to bring it into round. Now, the faster speeds, those are reserved for more refined cuts and detailed work. For example, if your piece is 1 to 2 inches wide and square, then you want to start at about 1600 RPM. After you refine it and get it closer to the finished shape, you can increase the speed to around 2100 RPM. If you're working with something 4 inches larger and square, then you want to start at around 1000 RPM. Once you get closer to the finished project, pick it up to around 1600 RPM. The speed can easily be adjusted with the pulleys. To alter the speed on this model, loosen the motor mount plate. That will allow you to release the tension on the drive belt, which will let it move up and down the pulley system. Most lathes will have a diagram which will show you exactly how to place the drive belt between the two pulleys to achieve the exact speed. At this point, I'd like to take a second to talk about tool sharpness. You see, in the world of woodworking, there's only one kind of sharp, and that's extremely. You see, a dull tool is a dangerous tool. Anything less than that, you're asking for trouble. That being said, let's talk about the tools you're going to be using. This is the roughing gouge. It's used just like it sounds, to turn rough stock into round stock. It's typically the first tool used when turning. Next is the spindle gouge. It's designed to smooth and refine already round shapes, and it's great for making smooth tapers. The parting tool lives up to its name by separating sections or segments of material. It allows you to make straight and square cuts at points of transition to a given depth. A bowl gouge is designed to hollow out material, like when you're making a bowl. The tool rest is designed to give your tool a solid foundation to rest on when making cuts. The rest should always be positioned just below the center of your material, so your tool will cut at about the center of what you're working on. The tool rest is adjusted by two levers. The first is cam operated. and will allow the rest to slide up and down and across the bed. The second allows the height of the rest to be adjusted. Finally, take your time and have fun. You see, a good project requires time, relaxation, and intuition. So the more time you spend on your lathe, the better you're going to get at it. As always, if you have any questions, drop me a line and I'll get right to it. I'm Rob North, and that's how you get it done.